They didn't leave because you were too much. They left because you were too real, too grounded, too unshakable. And now that you're finally quiet, finally at peace, they're losing their mind. See, your avoidant ex never expected you to thrive in their absence. They thought your world would fall apart without their validation. They thought you'd chase, you'd beg, you'd crumble. But instead, you disappeared into purpose, into power, into peace. And that silence, it's not just echoing in their ears, it's screaming in their conscience. Because avoidants don't process regret in real time. They avoid it, suppress it, bury it under rebounds, routines, and distractions. But when you go silent, when you stay silent, you rob them of the emotional chaos they depend on to feel in control. You're not giving them drama, you're not reacting, and now they're spinning. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Marcus Aurelius said that, and you've been living it. Because unlike your avoidant ex, you're not chasing closure. You're creating composure. You're not clinging to the past. You're building a future that has no space for half-love, hot and cold affection, or emotional fugitives. Let's be clear. Peace isn't passive. It's an act of war against the versions of yourself that settled for less. And it's driving your avoidant ex insane because they've lost their power. They can't provoke you. They can't manipulate your emotions anymore. You're not on their hook. You cut the line. And now that you're unreachable, now that you're unbothered, now they start to feel everything they avoided. Guilt, shame, that creeping sense that maybe, just maybe, they lost someone they'll never replace. Because peace isn't silence, it's presence. And your presence is louder now than your voice ever was. Psychologists say the avoidant attachment style is built around fear of intimacy and loss of control. So when you go peaceful instead of panicked, they lose control. When you become emotionally sovereign, they panic. Because the moment they can't predict you, they start to obsess over you, not out of love, but because your emotional detachment exposes their internal chaos. Let's face it, your healing is their crisis, your silence is their karma, your growth is the mirror they can't escape. And behind every fake smile, every new post, every breadcrumb they throw out, is one brutal truth. They don't miss you. They miss the version of themselves they could be when you made them feel safe. And now that you're gone, their foundation is cracking. Here's the truth. You didn't lose them. They lost access to the calmest energy they've ever known. Your peace isn't the absence of love. It's the presence of self. And that is terrifying to someone who runs from accountability. Someone who hides behind logic. Someone who thought detachment was their superpower until you mastered it. Before we dive deeper into exactly why your peace is triggering their spiral, I need you to do one thing. Smash that like button if you've ever been gaslit into thinking your calm was weakness. Subscribe for more unfiltered truths and join our channel membership to help us keep these videos coming. And most importantly, comment below with this mantra: my silence is sacred. Say it, own it, become it. Because in today's video, I'm going to show you why your avoidant ex is emotionally unraveling behind closed doors, how your peace exposed their deepest insecurities, and why staying calm is the most powerful revenge you'll never have to explain. Let's get into it. Stay focused. Key point 1. Your stillness feels like rejection to them. Your avoidant ex was never prepared for your stillness. They expected the usual reaction: tears, texts, emotional outbursts, maybe even a desperate "let's talk." Because every time they pulled away, they assumed you'd come closer. That's how the game always worked. They retreat, you chase, they withdraw, you try harder. But this time, something changed. This time, instead of reacting, you chose peace. And now, your calm feels like abandonment to the very person who abandoned you. Sounds backwards, right? But here's the psychology. Avoidants fear intimacy just as much as they fear rejection. They keep people at arm's length to avoid being hurt. But when someone truly detaches, when that person doesn't chase them anymore, it feels like they've been discarded. Because for the first time, they're not in control of the emotional distance. You are. And to someone used to having power over connection, that's terrifying. Stillness to an avoidant isn't neutral. It's offensive. It says, "I no longer need you to find peace." It says, "I'm not playing this tug of war anymore." And because they're wired to avoid deep emotional vulnerability, your silence doesn't register as maturity. It registers as rejection. Even if you meant it as self-respect, even if you walked away quietly with love, they can't receive it that way. Why? Because if they admitted your silence was noble, they'd have to admit that their behavior pushed you there. And that truth is too heavy for someone who runs from accountability. So, what do they do instead? They start creating false narratives in their head to protect their ego. You never really cared. You're probably already seeing someone else. You gave up too easily. Because if they convince themselves that you were the problem, they don't have to confront the deeper truth, that they lost someone stable, grounded, rare. And what's worse, your stillness doesn't just expose them, it exposes everyone they try to replace you with. Because no matter how fast they jump into something new, that person won't feel like you. They won't have your depth, they won't have your calm. They won't have that grounded energy that made chaos feel safe. So now, they're not just haunted by your absence. They're haunted by the version of themselves they could have become beside you. And every quiet moment you spend healing is a loud reminder to them of what they'll never have again. Coming up next. Key point 2. Your emotional control makes them feel powerless. Ready for it? Key point 2. Your emotional control makes them feel powerless. Let's get brutally honest here. Your avoidant ex never expected you to master your emotions. They banked on the belief that you needed them to feel whole. That without their attention, their breadcrumb texts, their cold and warm games, you'd spiral. But now, you've gone ghost, not out of bitterness, but clarity. You've stopped explaining, stopped reacting, and that quiet confidence, it's killing them slowly. Because emotional control is power, and they've lost all of it. Avoidants operate off control, not always consciously, but their entire nervous system is wired to stay in charge of how close or how distant the relationship feels. The moment you start pulling back and taking emotional authority, you flip the script. Suddenly they're the one wondering, what are you feeling? Are you thinking about me? Why aren't you chasing? And they hate that feeling. When you stop showing emotional volatility, they can't read you. When you stop reaching out, they can't gauge your attachment. When you stop explaining yourself, they can't manipulate the narrative anymore. Let's go deeper. This isn't just about ego. This is about identity collapse. Your avoidant ex once defined their worth by how much emotional control they had over the people closest to them. They used distance as a weapon, silence as a power play, mixed signals as a form of dominance. But now you've gone genuinely silent, and it's not a game, it's growth. That's different, that's dangerous, because real detachment is something they can't compete with. And when someone like you finally gets to that place, your peace becomes threatening to their false sense of power. You've become unpredictable. And unpredictability to an avoidant is like standing on emotional quicksand. They don't know where to place their next move. They don't know how to pull you back. They don't even know how to reach you anymore, because you're not where they left you. You're somewhere higher now, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. You're no longer trying to prove your worth to someone who couldn't even handle their own. And that emotional sovereignty, that unshakable calm, it leaves them with the one thing they fear most: powerlessness. Key point 3. Your peace exposes their internal chaos. Here's the part no one tells you. Your peace isn't just silence to your avoidant ex. It's a mirror. A painfully clear, emotionally unforgiving mirror, showing them exactly what they've been trying to outrun. Because when you're calm, grounded, and no longer reactive, it highlights something terrifying for them. They aren't. While you're waking up focused, journaling, hitting the gym, realigning with purpose, they're overthinking. They're emotionally twitchy. They're secretly unraveling in their own thoughts, trying to stitch together what went wrong, but refusing to admit that the chaos lives within them. Your stillness reveals their storm. See, avoidant exes operate in controlled environments. They regulate emotions by avoiding them. They avoid conversations, accountability, transparency, and even affection if it starts feeling too deep. But your peace? It doesn't chase. It doesn't explain. It doesn't beg. It sits there, serene, confident, composed, and exposes the imbalance they're stuck with internally. Now they have to sit alone with what they tried to dump on you. The anxiety they projected? That's backfiring now. The fear of being vulnerable? That's suffocating them now. The impulse to run? There's nowhere left to go because you're not following this time. And here's the thing. Peace feels unnatural to someone who's addicted to emotional chaos. So now your very existence feels like a threat. Not because you said something cruel, not because you sought revenge, but because you did the one thing they thought you'd never do. You let go, fully, quietly, completely. And in that stillness, your ex is now hearing everything they silenced in themselves. Regret, self-loathing, guilt. The emotional ghosts they thought would stay buried forever are now whispering to them at 2 a.m., and your peace is the background music. This is why they might start breadcrumbing again, why they might post cryptic stories, why they might send that just checking in text. Not because they've changed, but because your peace has made their inner world unbearable. Stay grounded, because you're not punishing them by being calm. You're healing yourself. And ironically, that's the most powerful punishment of all to someone who can't even sit with their own mind. Next. Key point 4. The more you detach, the more they obsess. And yes, this is where the secret comment mantra will be revealed. Want to continue? Key point 4. The more you detach, the more they obsess. Let's get something straight. Avoidant exes aren't immune to obsession. They just hide it better. They ghost you, then stalk your stories. They ignore your messages, then watch your every move. But the second you stop chasing, the second you fully detach, that calm indifference becomes the trigger they can't stop pulling in their own mind. Your detachment disrupts their entire strategy. Why? Because avoidants thrive when you're still emotionally available. When they know they can come back and find a familiar emotional supply waiting. That version of you who's still hoping, still hurting, still holding space for them. But you've changed the script. You're not angry. You're not playing pretend. You're just not playing at all. And that's what's driving them insane. Because when you detach with peace instead of spite, they start to realize you were never the clingy one. You were just emotionally available. You were committed. You were invested. And now that your investment has gone silent, they're realizing they were the ones emotionally bankrupt all along. Here's the thing they'll never say out loud. They miss your energy, not just your presence, your stability, your support, your consistency. They didn't know how rare that was until it was gone. And now, that void is louder than ever, because the avoidant never wanted you to go away completely. They just wanted you to stay attached without requiring intimacy. But now that you've detached, now that you're not orbiting their chaos anymore, they're spiraling. This is when they start obsessing. Not always with action, sometimes just in silent panic. They might refresh your page, scroll through old photos, replay old messages just to feel close again without having to be close. Because their pride won't let them reach out. But their obsession won't let them move on. And that's why I want you to comment this mantra below right now. My detachment is divine. Type it, claim it, live it. Because detachment isn't bitterness. It's balance. It's emotional self-respect. It's choosing not to participate in someone else's emotional confusion. And ironically, that's what makes them crave your energy more than ever before. You've stopped proving your worth. And now, they're stuck trying to figure out why they let it go. Coming up next, key point 5. They thought you'd break, but you built. Shall we go deeper? Key point 5. They thought you'd break, but you built. This was never part of their plan. Your avoidant ex truly believed that once they walked away, you'd fall apart. Maybe not all at once, but slowly. They expected emotional collapse, loneliness, desperation. They expected you to chase, to crumble, to prove your worth through pain. But instead, you rebuilt. Quietly, relentlessly, powerfully. While they scrolled, you studied. While they distracted themselves, you disciplined yourself. While they sought comfort in the arms of temporary people, you found peace in the arms of solitude. They thought the breakup would break you, but it became the blueprint for your rebirth. Here's the uncomfortable truth avoidants can't accept. Your growth ruins their fantasy. Because the story they tell themselves to cope is that you were the problem, that you were too much, too needy, too emotional, too intense. But when you start building a life of purpose, passion, and presence without them, that narrative crumbles. Your glow-up exposes their stagnation. Your emotional maturity highlights their avoidance. Your peace makes their chaos louder. And that evolution? It forces them to face the truth. They didn't walk away from someone weak. They ran away from someone rising. Your transformation is proof that they didn't complete you. You completed yourself. And that's what wrecks them. Because let's be real, they didn't expect to lose you permanently. They expected to hit pause on the connection, go, figure themselves out, and maybe circle back when it was convenient. But now they see you've outgrown the version of you that would have waited. And there's no returning to the emotional space you once held for them. It's gone, replaced by boundaries, confidence, clarity. You were supposed to break, but you didn't. You built, you evolved. And now your existence alone holds a mirror to every part of themselves they're still avoiding. Coming next, key point 6. Why their ego can't handle your indifference. Let me know if you're ready for more. This is only getting deeper. Key point 6. Why their ego can't handle your indifference. Here's the dagger. It's not your love they miss. It's your attention. It's not the relationship they regret losing. It's the emotional control they no longer have. And now that you're indifferent, now that you're calmly unavailable, their ego is bleeding, and they can't stop the internal hemorrhaging. You see, your avoidant ex needed to believe they had the upper hand, that they could leave and still matter, that they could walk away, breadcrumb you with mixed signals, and you'd still be emotionally on standby. But now you've stopped reacting. You don't flinch, you don't check in, you don't even blink. And that unbothered energy, it's devastating to someone whose self-worth is fueled by attention and control. Here's a hard truth. The avoidant ex is often addicted to being missed more than being loved. They confuse validation with value. And when you remove that validation, when you stop showing them they're still significant, they start questioning their own. That silence you've mastered. It's suffocating their ego. Because if you can live without them, maybe they were never as important as they convinced themselves. Your indifference exposes the illusion they built, that you were chasing them because they were irreplaceable. But now that you're not chasing, they're scrambling for proof that they still matter. And they're not getting it. This is why they might lash out subtly. Watch your stories, but never reach out post-suggestive, I'm unbothered content. Pretend they've leveled up with someone new, but it's all ego armor. Thin, fragile, cracking. Because ego can't survive where it's no longer needed. And your peace has made it clear. You're not playing that game anymore. The moment you became indifferent was the moment they realized you had something they never developed. Emotional security. And that kind of confidence? It can't be faked. It can't be manipulated. It can only be earned. Your indifference doesn't say, I don't care. It says, I care too much about myself to re-enter a space that kept me small. And that hits deeper than any I miss you ever could. Next, key point 7. They replaced you fast, but now they're haunted. Shall we continue? This is where the regret really kicks in. Key point 7. They replaced you fast, but now they're haunted. Let's talk about one of the most painful lies ever sold to the broken-hearted. If they replaced you quickly, it means you didn't matter. No. Sometimes they replace you quickly because they can't sit in silence long enough to face what they lost. And your avoidant ex. That's exactly what happened. They jumped headfirst into something new, posted the selfies, laughed louder, looked happier. On the surface, it looked like they moved on with ease. But what you didn't see is the emotional ghost they carried into that rebound. You. Because they didn't replace you out of joy. They replaced you out of avoidance, out of fear, out of desperation to not feel the weight of their own emptiness. And the tragic irony, no matter how quickly they tried to fill that void, Your presence keeps echoing through it like a song they can't turn off. They thought proximity to someone new would cancel out the memory of someone real, but shallow connections don't silence deep regrets. In fact, they amplify them. Now they're haunted. Not just by the moments they had with you, but by the version of themselves they'll never access again. The version that felt safe, the version that felt loved, the version that didn't need to perform. And let's be honest, that new person, they may be a distraction, but they're not a match. Because no one matches energy like someone who was there when the masks were off. No one replaces someone who saw their darkness and still stayed, until it cost too much peace. And here's the part they'll never admit. They keep comparing. Every laugh gets measured. Every kiss feels a little hollow. Every quiet moment turns into an unspoken memory of you. Because when someone tries to replace depth with novelty, they always end up choking on nostalgia. They may never tell you. They may never apologize. But deep down, they know. They didn't just lose a relationship. They lost a safe place. Now every shallow interaction reminds them of how real yours was. And that's the kind of regret that lingers for years, not days. Let this sink in. You didn't scream. You didn't beg. You didn't try to prove your worth. You just left with peace. And that's the loudest thing you've ever done. Your avoidant ex isn't over it. They're just too prideful to show it. Too emotionally unequipped to admit that they lost someone rare. Someone who made chaos feel like calm. But while they scramble for distractions, you've found discipline. While they seek validation, you've built identity. And now? Your life is moving forward without them. Quietly, confidently, powerfully. So keep walking. Not to punish them, but to protect you. Let go of the need for closure. You are the closure. Let go of the fantasy that they'll return healed. If they couldn't handle your peace, they'll never survive your power. Before you go, drop this in the comments if you're done playing small. My silence speaks louder than their guilt. Let that be your mantra, your declaration, your shield. Like this video if you're reclaiming your energy. Subscribe to the channel if you're done being the one who overgives. Join our channel membership to support deeper, rawer, more fearless content like this. And if this one hit deep, just wait until the next video. 5 signs your avoidant ex is watching you, but will never admit it. Because, oh yes, they're lurking, they're checking, they're obsessing, but they'll act like they don't even know your name. And we're going to expose every sign. You'll see it, you'll feel it, and you'll never look at silence the same way again. Turn on your notifications, because the next truth bomb drops soon. You're not healing to win them back. You're healing to never need someone like that again. Let's keep going.